Me lo mataron. They killed him. That is the voice message I received from my father at around 5 a.m. as I was on a train from New York to New Jersey, where I would meet my aunt who was about to pick me up and take me to my childhood home. We sat in the car in complete silence, knowing that something had happened, but not really understanding exactly what had happened. When he arrived to my childhood home, I can see all the cop cars. I jumped out of the car, ran to my front door, and started grabbing my keys when all of a sudden my mother opened the door and she stood there with tears running down her face holding my brother's orange and black sweatshirt. She didn't say a word, and I just said, no, 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 and I ran right past her, straight to my living room, where my 83-year-old grandfather was sitting in an armchair with his hand on his head, looking down. My father was behind him, pacing back and forth, saying, "Me lo mataron," they killed him. And I said, "Dad." And I remember his face. The tears ran down his face. And I saw this anger and pain. It was the same sadness that my mother had. My sister ran through the house minutes later, and we all just held each other in tears. In that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. I was 21 years old. My brother Louis was 19. For the next 5 years, I would struggle with mental health, depression, anxiety, insomnia, panic attacks. And the thing is that tragedies like this happen every day. It's been 13 years since my brother died. I've learned a lot. But one of the pressing things that I've learned is that when life hands you trauma and tragedy, you can either let it consume you and destroy you, and for a while it did, or you can let it uplift you. See, I don't believe that we have to go through trauma and tragedy to change our lives. I think you have a choice today, right now in this moment, to change it. But it really comes down to you. And there's something I discovered called the Creator Trifecta. And now there's 3 steps to the Creator Trifecta. And before I dive into them, I want to tell you a little bit more about me and who I am. So my name is Jennifer Morilla, or Morilla, whatever you feel comfortable with. I have an older sister and a younger brother. I'm 2nd-generation Cuban American. Both my parents are Cuban immigrants. And I had the privilege of meeting all 4 of my beautiful grandparents. And I had a pretty lovely childhood. I have memories of my dad teaching my brother, my sister, and I how to fish, camping in the Adirondacks, getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. Our family vacations down, road trips from New Jersey down to the Florida Keys in August, which if you've ever been to Florida in August, you know it is like living on the sun. So we are the kind of family that it was a requirement to have dinners together, no phone, no TV at the dinner table. Our father referred to us as the 3 Musketeers, all for one and one for all, because no matter what life threw at us, La Familia, the family, was number 1, and we would get through it together. Those were our values. So on September 10th of 2010, when my sister and I became the 2 Musketeers, I had spoken to my brother hours before he passed away. And I had just moved into my New York City apartment. It was my senior year of college. And you can imagine how happy I was. I was living in New York. Guys, I had a plan. It was going to be my big year. It was going to be great. Everything was in order. And what's that saying? Show God your plans and he's going to laugh. And he laughed. I remember talking to him on the phone, and I invited him over that night with his girlfriend. He said, "No, I'm going to go out. I'm going to celebrate a birthday party." at this place, and while I wasn't crazy about the place he was going to, there was nothing I could say because I'd once been there. It wasn't the safest, but okay. And I said to him, I love you, be careful and have fun. And he laughed and said, I'll be fine, I love you. Those were the last words my brother said to me. My brother used to say to me a lot, Jen, you worry too much. Don't worry so much. So somewhere between 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, as my brother was walking out of a nightclub, there was a fight outside and someone had a gun. My brother was running to the vehicle with his girlfriend when he was shot. He was 19. He was 6'3" and 230 pounds. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Over the next 5 years, the questions that ran rapid through my head were, why us? Why him? Why me? I was in a dark rat race. From the outside, life was great. You couldn't tell. I graduated, I somehow managed to graduate. I went to grad school, I started my own business, I was living life, I was making money, everything was fine, but deep down inside, I was miserable. It was like pushing a boulder up a hill with slippers. And I was in the rat race every single day, doing the thing because I thought it would make me happy. Around August of 2014, I call it my matrix moment, where I saw the reflection of who I was. And the negative questions that I had stopped. And I had this one question come to mind. How do you want to spend this one precious life? See, I realized that my brother didn't have a choice. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. But I did. I could choose to change these negative emotions and these thoughts, this rampant voice in my head that wouldn't silence. I could choose to change that. So at first I couldn't answer that question. And the truth is I looked at my life and I was like, okay, of course I want to get an education, of course I want to do good, but what do I really want out of my life? Why am I checking all these boxes? Why am I moving so quickly? Eventually, with time, I began to create a list of things I wanted to do. So I wanted to travel solo, I wanted to learn to surf, I wanted to go to Bali. I wanted to help people, I wanted to change the world, and I wanted to wake people up. Now, that was gonna take a lot, and it was gonna take a lot of courage, which brings me to step 1 of my creator trifecta. So courage, having the awareness and the honesty to look at yourself and be honest. Where are you? Are you happy? Do you like the version of you that you see? And can you change it? There was a study done by Professor Carl Palmer from Cornell University. He interviewed 1,600 Americans over the age of 65, and he asked them this one pressing question. What do you regret most in your life? And the responses were, I wish I had traveled more. I wish I spent more time with my loved ones, and I wish I didn't work so hard. There was an 80-year-old man who was asked if he could come back to this life as anything, who would he want to come back as? And he said, I would come back as myself, but with more courage. I would have more acts of courage. Look at your lives. Where have you lacked in courage? Maybe it's asking for that promotion. Maybe it's changing your careers. Maybe it's living somewhere else, moving. Maybe it's traveling solo. I think of my grandparents coming to this country from Cuba with nothing but a dream and hopes that it would be a better future not only for their children, but for their grandchildren. And my first act of courage was in February of 2015 when I quit my job to travel the world with clean water filters to developing countries. There I am in India, and that's in Nepal. And I left with a dream and a vision, and I wanted to play my part and help save the world. It was going to take a lot more than courage, guys. It was going to take grit, which is my next step to the creator trifecta. The definition of grit: firmness of character and indomitable spirit, aka not taking no for an answer and not giving up. Angela Duckworth, the famous author of the book Grit, defines grit as perseverance of passion for long-term goals. When I think of this, I think of Olympic athletes training to win the gold medal. I think of marathon runners. I think of the discipline and the passion. I also think of my brother, loved to play baseball. He played college baseball. And that's what he loved to do the most. The passion he had for waking up early, going to those tournaments and training. I also think of my grandparents traveling from Cuba, coming over here, again, for something greater. And as immigrants, that is so hard. I think of so many immigrant families who come here with absolutely nothing and survive. Grit is what you need when the motivation runs out. So, my first adventure when I left in February of 2015 was El Camino de Santiago, which is known as the Way of St. James. This is a pilgrimage of 500 miles from the south of France to the north of Spain. You walk by foot. I did 350 miles for 3.5 weeks. Me, myself, my giant backpack, and a journal. The significance of the Camino, which is also known as the Way, is that the road is a highway of life, and your backpack is what you need to take with you, and you let go of the things that no longer serve you. I started the Camino with a backpack this big, and by the end of the Camino, I had given all of my stuff away. I'm not even joking. I had one set of pajamas, an extra t-shirt, an extra pair of shorts, socks, and a journal. In fact, the night I got to Santiago, I had no clean clothes. I partied in my pajamas, celebrated after 3.5 weeks. But this was the thing. What I learned from the Camino is that I can be the creator of my reality. I can choose to do something like this. It was one of the most difficult things I had done in my life physically at that point, and yet one of the most rewarding things, because I realized I was in control of what was happening. Now, I know at this point you're like, Jen, this is great. We're not going to quit our 9-to-5s to walk the Camino. But I'm going to ask you the question I realized earlier. What will you do with this one precious life? In a world where they tell you, check the boxes, don't be too loud, get a job because it's safe. For what? What's the definition of safe? How safe can you really be? This brings me to my next step, agency. Agency is having the responsibility for your choices and your outcomes. It's going from victim to creator. And it's from realizing that life happens for you and not to you. So, we all know that our emotions create our thoughts, and our thoughts create our reality, right? I'll say that again. Our emotions create our thoughts, and our thoughts create our reality. So, Dr. Joe Dispenza says, by actively choosing positive emotions and letting go of negative, we are improving our health and creating a fulfilling life. It requires breaking the addiction of negative emotion, regulating your autonomic nervous system, and aligning your thoughts and emotions to their desired state of being. When I realized that my emotions create my thoughts and my thoughts create my reality, I could rewire my brain. I could change the internal conversation. So that's exactly what I did. I started telling myself positive things, even though my reality did not reflect that. But do you know what started to happen? Life got good. Life got so much better. They say, research says, that what builds connections and heals is relationships and healthy connections. In fact, it counteracts the effects of trauma. Ladies and gentlemen, when I left in 2015, I wasn't just crossing things off my bucket list. My travels and delivering clean water filters weren't altruistic acts. They were my roadmap and my guide to healing. It is what rooted me and discovering the 3 tools for the Creator Trifecta, which is the same thing that happened with Professor Carl Palmer when he realized, with the research that he did, where people said, I wish I had traveled more. I wish I had spent more time with the people, and I wish I didn't work so hard. It was the same thing that my grandparents did when they came to this country, not just for themselves and their children, but for a greater generation, for a legacy. And the truth is that till this day, even though my brother's not around, my dad still calls us the Three Musketeers because we still have an unbreakable bond. I believe that we all have the choice to change our narrative. I chose grief as the catalyst for my change. I chose grief as the catalyst for my change, for myself and the world around me. You do not need to go through something like I went through to change. You have the choice to do that today, and I beg you. And I ask you, what will your catalyst be? Will it be for yourself or the world around you? Where can you bring in the creator trifecta? Where can you bring in more courage, grit, or agency? Because the truth is that we already know that you hold the key. It starts with you. Thank you.